Replacing the bar oil pump on a EGO CS1800E chainsaw. How hard can it be? Remove the battery and activate the power switch just to make sure that there's no residual current in the system. Remove the cover, the bar and chain. This next bit's a little bit tricky. You want to remove this clip here without losing it. So just be careful how you do it, or make sure you can see where the clip goes when it springs off. There we go, perfect. Okay, so I guess that's the way to take that clip off, is just with a flathead screwdriver. And then take the retaining washer off. Disengage the brake. I'm going to engage the brake at this point, and that will make it easier to take this cover off. You won't be able to take the cover off unless you take the oiler off. One good piece of design with this EGO chainsaw, and I suspect all their chainsaws, is that the vast majority of the screws are the same size, and they're a torque T20. I'm just going to take the handle off at this stage too. It's going to come off anyway. Okay, that's all the screws out of there. So with the brake on, this cover will come off quite easily. The cover has the pin which helps to operate the brake mechanism. There's a felt ring. Be careful of that. And now that I've taken the clip off, in order to get the drive cog out, the brake needs to be engaged. So let's see if we can engage that. Disengage, sorry. Okay, there you go, it's disengaged. Take the drive cog out. And what I'm going to do is re-engage or re-engage the brake so that I can take this mechanism out. Confession here, I've had a couple of goes at taking this apart and putting it back together. This compression spring here is a little bit of an issue in terms of it is quite a compress, as it were, but I've found a way of removing that reasonably easily, or removing it and putting it back in reasonably easily. So for now I'm going to remove that. Okay, before I go any further, I'm going to empty out any residual oil in the tank here. I'll probably do for that. Okay, I have taken this apart, so I know where the hidden screw is. One tip I'd have for all of these types of machines that have stickers on them, if you run your finger over all of the stickers, then you'll discover small indentations, or you'll feel small indentations where the hidden fixings are. So there is one in there. So that done. Remove all the screws, and there's one at the battery slot there. I'm going to start there, and as I say, all of these are the same size, and work my way round. Okay. That should be them, all of them. So the casing, if you've taken all the screws out, the casing should come apart easily. Be careful of the light switch there. It has a ribbon connector. As I say, if you've taken all the screws out, then the casing will come apart quite easily, very easily. You'll need to unscrew the cap for the oil tank in order to remove it completely. Put the cap back on there. Okay, and that's you there. Remove the paddle for the brake. And the next thing to do is take out the fan baffle, I think it's described as. Again, that should just lift off easily. And the next thing to remove is the cut-off switch for the motor when the brake is engaged. And that's held on not just by a screw but also by a small washer. And it's also located quite snugly onto two plastic pins. So with a suitably blunt instrument, lever that out. Be careful of the wires. This yellow and red one is the light, and this one is for that cut off. The yellow and red one is for the light, and the grey and white one is for the cut-off switch. And you want to remove them from any connection to this plate here. So now you want to unscrew the motor housing itself. And again, that will lift out quite easily. there are the wires, the power wires for the motor housing, and as I say, that will slip out reasonably easily as well. The only thing holding that back are the power cable. Is the power cable. Okay, might as well take out the trigger switch and the safety button, as it will fall out anyway. Always a great idea to have a large, clear work area that's well lit. Okay. The only thing holding that back is these cables here. Come on. I see what's holding it back is the T, which is part of the feed, the oil line feed to the oiler. So that goes through into the oiler on the other side there. There we go. Now it'll come out easily. Perfect. Okay, try not to disturb the electrics if possible. And that gives you access to the oil pump, which is this part here. And all the other screws are T20 torques. The oil pump itself is a T15 torque. So just put them separately there. And that's that. When you buy the oil pump kit, then it comes with the oil pump and the tank separated. And what you'll need to do apart from trying to ensure that no oil gets into any parts it isn't necessary to be in, you'll need to feed the feed tube up through that hole there, and connect it to the pump. And then feed the line through its slot. Locate the pump into the worm drive and screw it in place. Don't over torque any of these screws. All you do when you over tighten screws is stretch and strip threads, and that's very easily done when the components are plastic. So the feed into the oiler has a hole in one side and the other side is blanked off, and it is just a locator. So as you can see, you can locate that in there, and the oil line itself goes there. And you can see, hopefully, that the oil pump is turning there. So that's pretty much it. Now we have to put it all back together. And that's just the reverse. So making sure that that feed for the oiler goes into that hole just above the bolt there. aligned really well, really easily. Okay, I just want to make sure that the electrics are in place as they should be. Okay, that's perfect. So now back to the Torque 20 driver. And I'll start with that one. Just make sure it's seated properly. I suppose torque these up as you would a car. Car wheel opposites. I would suspect that's just the feed into the oiler seating properly. Okay. Go around them. Perfect. Okay, so the next part is to put the cut-off switch for the motor and brake back in place. And again, very important to just be careful with these wires. Break one of these and it will spoil your day. So using a non-sharp implement, push them all into their locations. And it's quite easy to follow where they're going. As you can see, I am being careful with them. So that's the one for the brake, and this is the one for the light. Okay, perfect. Okay, the screw with the small washer. The fan baffle. There we go. And then the oil tank sits like that. Perfect. Okay, before I do that, let's put the brake in. The red indicator going to the back, and that spring goes just behind that lug there. Hopefully that's coming out on camera. Okay, so behind there. Just like that. And when that's in place, as you can see, it activates, breaks the circuit and stops the motor from turning. So I'll put that back in place, and the trigger. And that's also relatively easy. In fact, it is. It's very easy to put this all back in place. It's a well-designed machine. Okay, take the cap off again to slide the cover plate over. And then once that's in, you can put that back. And just with taking it off, it should all go back together and seat easily. If it doesn't, don't force it. There we go. Perfect. just going to screw these up exactly the way I screwed them out, starting there. And not forgetting the screw that goes here at the battery slot. Okay, excellent. So the brake mechanism can be a little bit of an issue. I'm going to put that in just yet. I'm going to put the drive cog back on with the retaining washer and the retaining clip. And again, just be careful with the retaining clip that it doesn't spring off into your workshop somewhere. I suspect there's an actual tool for this, but I don't have it. There we go. Okay, that's tight. Happy with that. So the brake, as I say, can be a little bit of a mission, and I've had a few goes of this. And the only way that I can suggest you put the brake spring, compress the brake spring back into place, is by having a lever like that you can press in against. So you can push down into it. I guess, to be honest, if you look at a screwdriver, that might work. I used this the last time and it worked. It is fiddly. Because it's a reasonably high compression spring. Okay, as you can see, quite fiddly. I wonder if we've got anything else that would be more suitable. That's brake disengaged, that's brake engaged. So brake engaged would put least pressure on the spring. Okay, I did say it would be a little bit of a mission. Don't really want to have anything that is going to abrade the metal, and it has to be something that's going to slide reasonably easily into place. Again, there's probably a special tool for this. I think I'm going to get it that way. Okay, how very frustrating. I'm going to have to find something that I can push against there. Perhaps removing the cog again. probably the way I did it. Yep, that's the way I did it. Okay, leave the cog out at that stage, but then you're going to need to slot the pin back in. In order to do that, you'll still have a bit of faffing around to do. Okay, manage to locate that and then release the brake. Okay, perfect. There's a way of doing it easily. Leave putting the cog in until you can release the brake. Then put the retaining washer on and clip back in place. Okay, that's the trickiest bit you're going to have to deal with. So now if I let the brake off, I'll be able to put this mechanism back in easily. Wants to spring out at that point. Okay, perfect. So leave the cog out, locate the compression spring and brake band in place, then put the pin in part way so that you can release the brake and put compression on the spring, and that will allow you to put the drive cog, retaining washer and clip in place. And then you can put the brake back on in order to slot the cover into place. Okay, looks like there's a bit of dirt in there. Just going to pop the battery back in at this stage. And let's see if the light works. Perfect. With the brake on, nothing should happen, which it doesn't. With the brake off, the motor should start. Perfect. And there's oil coming out of there. Hopefully you can see that. Perfect. Okay, handle back on. I quite like this ratchet mechanism for tensioning the chain. I don't like all the faff of having to find a 10mm spanner, and I think that most chainsaws will start to adopt a similar one. Okay, that's not quite there, I think. I think most chainsaws will adopt some similar. Okay, I've got a pet spider here. Oh. There you go, spider. Okay, that's fine. That's probably as tight as that goes. Now then, let's fill up the tank. It's not going to get any oil if the tank's not full. And the way I'm going to do that is from the bottle. I just use rapeseed oil as bar oil. It works just as well as the bought stuff and is cheaper as the specific stuff and is cheaper and environmentally friendly. Okay. Cap back on. Brake on. Doesn't work. Okay, let's see if it runs and cuts and gets sufficient oil. There's a pet spider again. Safety glasses. Okay, getting oil anyway. This is a piece of very dry spruce. So let's just see how we get on with it. Doesn't work with the brake on. Take the brake off, and that's fine. Perfect, everything works. Let's see if it cuts. Cuts really well. It is a powerful, capable saw. And that's reasonable. I did catch on a bump in on my improvised saw horse there. As you can see from the other side that I did yesterday, absolutely bang on flat. So really nice saw. I very much doubt this sticker's going to stay on. I'm not going to super glue it on. I'll clean off the glue and see if I can find a suitable glue to glue it on. Anyway, well, that's done. Very pleased. So, not too difficult. A couple of things there that I would say are a bit tricky rather than difficult. The clip which holds the retaining washer and the drive cog into place, you do need to be careful. It does spring off into the middle of nowhere. There is probably a specialised tool for removing and fitting one of those clips. I don't have one. Likewise, putting the compression spring from the brake into its slot. I've struggled with that, but I've worked it out now, and the way to do it is when you're taking it apart, you disengage the brake, and that will allow you to remove the cog, and then you can engage the brake, and that will allow you to remove the cover. And the reverse is the case when you're putting it back together. Leave the drive cog out and then locate the brake band and compression spring. Half fit the cover, which will then allow you to disengage the brake, which will give you the space around the brake band to refit the drive cog, retaining washer, etc. So really just those two things that I struggled with. The rest of it was quite straightforward. Hope that helps. Good luck.